Hey, this is Andrew here at Vespa Portland, and this is a 2019 Vespa Primavera Touring. So this is the Vespa Primavera Touring in the model year of 2019. The Primavera was released originally in 2014. It replaced the LX line of scooters. And for the most part, outside of some aesthetic changes and a few technological upgrades in the last 2 years, the bike is essentially the same as it was in 2014 in terms of operation. There's two kinds of Vespa Primavera 150s. There's the standard Vespa Primavera and then the Primavera Touring. What does Touring mean? It means that you end up getting a front rack, a rear rack, and a windscreen on a bike that typically does not have those three accessories with it. The trade-off for that is that you only have one color option. It changes every year. It was silver one year, it was Portofino green the next, and now it is this wine red or rosso vignolo. In the standard Vespa Primavera, you don't get the two racks and the windscreen, but you do have more color options like white, blue, black, and red at this point. Okay, to get started, let's talk about something very basic. How do I get this bike on and off of its center stand? As you can see, the center stand has 2 points of contact with the ground. That's going to provide a very stable base for when the vehicle is parked. As you can see, I'm shaking the bike right now and it's not going to fall over. Okay, to get the bike off of a center stand, one way to do that is to stand at the side of the bike and put your left hand onto the handlebar right here and put your right hand onto the seat rail. You're going to want to grab onto something static, not something that's going to move like the back of this rack. Simply stand there with those hands in those spots and push forward, and the bike will come right off of the stand. A second option is to sit on the bike and simply rock it forward, and it's going to come right off of the stand as well. We don't recommend that you do this motion if the bike is on, because you could potentially throttle back and the bike could get away from you. Get it off of the stand before you turn your bike on if you're going to do it this way. All right, and to get your bike back onto the center stand, there are two techniques, one of which is definitely the best one, and the other one is a little sketchy, but I've seen people use it with some success. Basically, what you're going to do is kind of the same thing in reverse. You're putting your left hand on the left handlebar again, and if you want to hold onto the brake for a little extra stability, you can. And then you want to grab again on the back seat rail right here on something static, not something that's going to move. At that point, stand with your left shin right about directly across from the passenger foot peg on the bike. Keep the seat level and open up your right hip and put your heel onto the center stand. You're going to want to keep the bike completely level because it's a two-pronged stand, and if you lean the bike this way, it's going to go like that, and if you lean it away from you, it's going to go like that. You want both to be in contact with the ground, and the only way you get that is by having the seat level. At that point, you're going to push past the apex of the stand and put it back onto the stand like that. Now, this is sometimes tough for new riders because they've never done this before. Most of the time, people tend to fight with it around this area. They can't get it over. Once you really push your weight into the bike and you'll push the bike up onto the stand like that, you'll see that the technique is not super complicated. You just need to get over that apex. If the way I just explained isn't working out, I've also seen some people do this different technique that is a little sketchy, because if the bike gets away from you as it leans that direction, there's not a lot you can do to recover it. You might just fall over on the side. But here it is anyway. You put both hands on the handlebars and you stand on the left side of the bike. And you put your right foot back, put the heel on the stand, make sure the bike is level, and pull back like this. The downside of that is if you kind of lose your balance, you could potentially lean over and lose the bike that way. So really your best bet is to stand here firmly, hold it with both hands in firm areas, and just push it on like so. Some things to look out for when you are parking your bike is, what exactly are you parking your bike on? If you are parking on grass, for some reason, keep in mind that these are just basically two metal contact points with the ground. Chances are high that if you park this on the grass, it's going to sink into the grass and could cause your bike to tip over. But even on the street, you're going to want to look out for things like cross-hatch storm drains, where the bike could potentially fall into that and fall over. We're in an old building here, and we actually have a hole in our floor, and we've dropped a bike in our own shop, and we're supposed to be professionals. So while we're on the subject of parking, something you're always going to want to do when you park, especially in public, is turn your handlebars all the way to the left and then turn your key all the way to the left through the lock position. What that's going to do is lock your steering and it's going to be a deterrent to anyone who wants to potentially steal your bike. When you come back to your bike, simply insert the key, turn it to the right, even one stop, and the handlebars will release and you'll be able to handle the bike as normal. Don't leave your bike in public with the bars unlocked. Someone could walk away with your bike very easily. So while we're on the key, let's talk about the positions of the key. On the 2019 Primavera line, you have lock, close, off, and on. The only ones that matter in the American market are lock, off, and on. Close is useless in our market, but it is something built into the bike for other countries. Lock is, of course, going to lock your steering. The little loop with the X on it right there is off, which means it's not going to use any battery power in that position. You can actuate your seat in that position. And then there's on, which you'll use when you want to start the bike. What close is in certain countries there are so many scooters that they become piled up essentially on the street. And someone may find themselves in a situation there where their bike is in the middle of the pile. And so what close does is it locks out all the functions of the bike without having to lock the steering. So essentially what's going on is people are trusting other people to move the bike out of the way, go get their own, and then put your bike back. We don't do that here in the US. It'd be nice someday if we had that many scooters to need that, but we don't need it here. So close is useless to you as a US market rider. So to get your bike started, you're going to need to insert the key into the bike and turn it to the on position, to the far right. Now, unlike a car, you don't have to crank your key over because that is not how you get the bike started. You just need it to be in the on position. When you turn the key to the on position, you're going to see the dashboard lights up. A bunch of indicator lights come on and then they disappear. You're going to want to wait for those lights to disappear before you start the bike. What's left on now, the blinking ABS light, which we'll cover in a bit, and the oil pressure light, that's totally fine. Those aren't going to go out when the bike is off. All right, so the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that your kill switch is in the on position. Right now it's off. It's all far to the left, and that is the off position, and the bike will not start with it in that position. What you're going to want to do is slide it over to the side with the open loop, that direction. At that point, you're going to hold on to either brake. Doesn't matter which one you pick. Hold on to the brake, and then you're going to want to push this electric start button right here. And the bike will fire right up. There's two schools of thought on how to turn off a bike. Motorcycle safety classes will tell you to always use the kill switch because they're trying to build the habit into you that if something goes wrong, you can easily just use your thumb and turn off the bike, right? You're not going to be able to reach down and grab the key in an emergency situation. So there's merit to that school of thought. But one thing that gets missed sometimes, especially by new riders, is you can use the kill switch to turn off the bike, but if you don't also follow through by turning the key off, if you just go in your garage and you use the kill switch and you're thinking about something else, maybe what you're gonna have for dinner, you gotta take the dog out, whatever it is, if you forget to turn off the key, the bike doesn't actually turn off. The engine is stopped, but the battery, that whole electrical system is still engaged. So the second part of that is also turning off the key, and probably removing the key is a good way because it won't come out when the bike is on. A good way to remind yourself that you actually turned it off. We get a lot of calls from people who have accidentally left the key on overnight and in the morning their battery is definitely dead. Make sure to turn your key off when you turn your bike off. Since we're talking about starting a bike, a real common thing we see with new riders and even sometimes experienced riders is they get on their bike and for some reason it won't start and it kind of sends them into a panic. If you did not leave your key on overnight in your garage, then chances are it is simply your kill switch that hasn't been clicked back into the on position. If you've done that, next thing to check is your key all the way into the far right position, and do you see lights on your dashboard? If your key is in the far right position, you see no lights, chances are your battery might be dead. That's kind of what you would expect if you left your key on overnight. The next thing is, am I holding a brake while I'm pressing the electric start? If you're not doing that, it won't start. You have to hold the brake as well. 99% of the time, the kill switch is what is holding you up. And even experienced riders get held up by this every now and then. All right, next up we're going to talk about the controls on the handlebars, and we'll start with the left side. From the top to bottom on the left side, you've got your high beam and low beam indicator, your turn signals, and your horn. Now this is pretty much the same on every scooter or motorcycle, but we're talking about it as it relates to the Primavera. In the US, it's a law that your headlight must be on all the time, and so you can't turn your lights off. Your low beam is always going to be running while the bike is running. If you want to use the high beam, you can see the little high beam icon on here. You push the switch to the left, and the high beam will come on. It's going to turn off your low beam and use the high beam only. On the dashboard, the little blue high beam light will come on. If you slide it to the right, you're going to flash your high beam. That's going to keep the low beam on, but also engage the high beam. That's useful for when traffic is coming towards you and you want to flash at them to maybe make someone who's going to make a left turn in front of you notice that you're there, or just to get a driver's attention in any situation. If it's very, very dark out, like you're on a rural road and there's no street lights, you can actually ride holding that in to the right side, and it'll put on the high beam and the low beam and just provide a lot of extra light. So you can still see the road and what's ahead of you. So as you can see, when the high beam is on, the high beam indicator is going to appear. Next up on the left side is the turn signals. Now the turn signal is another sliding switch with a button in the middle as well. If you want to put on your left turn signal, you simply slide the switch to the left and your turn signal will engage. You can see the light under here is flashing. To cancel your turn signals, you have to do it manually. You have to push in on that middle button. There is no self-canceling or auto-canceling functionality on a scooter or most motorcycles. Even if you are turning the bars left and right, the turn signals are not going to turn off on their own. And when the turn signals are on, the turn signal will appear there. On the bottom, lastly, is your horn. Use it often. Let people know they've wronged you. Let people know you're there. That's the horn. All right, moving on to the controls on the right side of the bars. As you've already seen, there's the kill switch up on the top. If that's in the off position, the bike won't start. And the on position is the only way it will let you start the bike. If you need to kill your engine for any reason while you're riding, simply slide it to the left and the engine will die. The mode button on the right side is shaped like the turn signal and the high beam button, but it is not movable side to side. It simply has a button in the middle. Some functions of the mode button are that you can first off toggle between total miles, trip A and trip B on the dashboard, but also you can set your clock. To set your clock, what you want to do is go to the total miles setting, which I happen to be on now, and then you would simply hold the mode button in until the hour starts flashing, and then you can do short presses to advance the time, and then a long press to set the time. At that point, it's going to flash the minutes. You're going to do short presses to advance the minutes, and a long press to set the minutes. These bikes are not smart enough to understand daylight saving time, so this is something you'll have to do every time the time changes. The bottom button is your electric start. The only reason you need to use this is to get your bike started. There's no reason to touch it when you are riding. All right, next up, let's talk about the brakes on the bike. If you're a first-time rider, this can sometimes be a little confusing to start because the brakes on a scooter are opposite of what you would find on a bicycle with two brakes. On a bicycle, your right hand is the rear brake and your left hand is the front brake, and you're kind of taught that stay away from the front brake or you could fly over the bars. On a scooter, it's opposite. So the right hand is the front brake. The left hand is the rear brake. These brakes are not created the same, and they are not like a bicycle in terms of their use. The rear brake on a scooter is only going to provide about 30% of your braking power. You can ride along and hold this, and you're not going to slow down very fast. 70% of your braking power is going to come from the front brake. And unlike on a bicycle, the front brake on a scooter is your friend. You're not going to fly over the handlebars if you hold this. Ideally, what you're doing is grabbing both brakes and squeezing evenly at the same time. That's your best way to stop. The rear brake on this bike is a drum, and the front brake on it is a disc. The Primavera now has ABS brakes, or an anti-lock brake system. It's in the front brake only. So what that means is if you really grab this front brake, it's not going to lock up and skid on you. It's going to prevent the skid from happening. If someone is tailgating you and you kind of want to flash the brake at them to get them to back off a little bit, your best bet is to flash the left side brake, which is the rear brake, because again, it's not going to slow you down very much. it's one that you can flash often. When you're at a complete stop, if you hold the rear brake, that one is attached to the whole engine, and so you're going to feel the vibration of the engine coming through the caliper and into the rest of the bike. You will not feel that vibration on the front brake. It's totally normal to feel it on the rear brake, but because it's there, a lot of people don't prefer to hold the rear brake when they're stopped. They prefer the front. It's also worth saying that sometimes you'll hear a slight electrical buzzing sound when you're using the front brake. It's actually not electricity at all. It is simply air going through the caliper and going through the holes on the disc that are meant to dissipate heat. You're hearing that buzz of the air going through there. Totally normal. It's also totally normal to hear a little bit of a sound when you ride, which is the disc brake going through the caliper and slightly contacting. Next up, we'll talk about adjusting your mirrors. If your mirror becomes loose, all you're going to need to do is lift up this little rubber cover, and you'll see underneath the nut. That's a 17 millimeter on a Vespa Primavera, 17 millimeter. So go to Harbor Freight or something and grab a wrench and keep that with you in the underseat storage or at your house. That's going to be for major adjustments. For smaller adjustments, it's going to be okay just to adjust with the mirror itself. And this is going to go up and down or out and in a little bit. Major out and in adjustments you're going to want to do at the perch. Up and down you can easily do from here. Do not adjust your mirrors while you are riding. Pull over and stop. Your mirror is of course attached to your handlebar. If you're grabbing this mirror while you're riding, there's potential that you're going to kind of jerk it in a weird way and you're going to go into a wobble and potentially crash. As for where you want your mirror to be when you are riding, it's kind of a personal preference thing. I like to have my shoulder just in the bottom left-hand corner of the mirror and then the rest of the mirror reserved for the lane next to me. I find it gives me a little bit of a reference point having my shoulder there. Some people might not want to have their body in the mirror at all, but that's just where I like to have it. So check a few different options and see how it goes and what you prefer. All right, next up we're going to go into the glove box on the bike, which is located by your feet. Accessing the glove box is real easy. All you have to do is have your key in the position of off or on, anything other than lock, and you're going to want to push directly in on the key and the glove box will fall open. It will not open on that closed setting we were talking about earlier. It has to be in the off or the on position. You can see that there is not a lot going on the right side. There's some fuses there and a little panel that you shouldn't mess with. On the left side is where any kind of storage is potentially going to happen. There's a USB port in here so you can charge up your phone or other device. You can also put your registration in there and your insurance. And the last thing in there is underneath there's a little lever, which is the manual seat pop. And I'll pull that now. When you pop the seat, you're going to be able to open up the seat back here, but be careful to not open the seat too quickly if the glove box door is down. They will occupy the same space and you could knock it off of its hinge. So get that out of the way and then you can open up the seat. That's how you open your seat manually. If you'd like to open your seat electrically, that's easy too. All you have to do is put your bike into the off or on position and hit this seat button, and that is going to pop the seat electrically. What's under the seat storage? The first thing is on a Vespa Primavera or Vespa Sprint, the underseat storage bucket can actually come out of the bike. On a lot of the Piaggio scooters or the genuine scooter line, this bucket is just kind of permanently in there, or you can take it out, but you have to take out all the fasteners. It's a real easy, quick way to get the thing out. Inside of it, you're going to see a bunch of labels with information about the bike, some of which is going to be relevant, some of which will not, but there's information there, and that's where you can see it. In the underseat storage, you're going to find a little toolkit that comes with your bike. This is going to have some basic tools to remove some of the simple fasteners on the bike. You're also going to find the warranty booklet from Piaggio and your owner's manual right underneath there. This is of course going to have way more detailed information than we could ever cover in this video. Check that out if you have any questions. In this particular bike, it looks like we also have a receipt for a 10-piece McNuggets meal with barbecue sauce. You find some things sometimes in the bikes that are traded in. Inside of the underseat storage is a good place to carry things that are not temperature sensitive. So like I said before, we can take out this underseat storage bucket, but directly below that is the engine. And you can sort of see this maybe in the shot that it's on a tripod. The engine is there and it's going to bring heat up through the bottom of the bucket. Piaggio has tried to remedy that a little bit with a liner inside of the bucket. to kind of dissipate some of that heat, but it's still going to get pretty warm in there. So not a great place for ice cream, not a great place for any kind of pets. There's actually a sticker that says no pets, so don't put them in here. But it is a wonderful place for burritos or to-go Chinese food to keep things warm while you're on the way home. If your helmet is larger, maybe you have a larger head, your helmet may not fit into the underseat storage bucket easily. I picked a smaller helmet for the example here, so you can kind of see that this helmet, even this small helmet, is kind of having trouble fitting. But it's okay, because on the front of your seat, on both sides, there's these little metal knobs, and what that is meant for is to hang your helmet, and you can do that very simply by using the metal hooks that are on your helmet and simply hang it from that. Your helmet will sit in this space below, and when you close the seat entirely, it's going to lock the helmet in there. It's not going to go anywhere. If someone was going to try to steal your helmet, they would have to cut the strap, which would make it useless to them and you anyway. So I've found that this is a perfectly great place to put a helmet when you're leaving your bike out in public. Also under the seat, you're going to find the service interval sticker. You're definitely going to want to call us to schedule a service when you hit the mileage written on the sticker. That is keeping in the Piaggio manufacturer specified service interval, and maintaining your bike throughout those services will work to keep your warranty intact and keep your bike running as well as it can. Take it easy when you close the seat. You don't want to slam it down. There's a latch right here. If you slam it down too hard, you could mess up the latch. Just take it easy on your bike. Put it down like so. Or if you have to push down, that's fine. It can take a little bit, but definitely don't just slam it down super fast. Next up is your gas cap, which is located underneath your seat, and you can easily just take it off like this. If you are watching this and you live in the state of Oregon, you can actually pump your own gas if you have a scooter or a motorcycle. You cannot do that here if you have a car. So it's one little perk of riding a bike is you can get in and out of a gas station real quick without waiting on anybody. Ideally, to fill up, you're going to have the nozzle going this direction into the tank. Put your finger underneath the little metal locking mechanism that wants to come down and kind of like lock it so you can walk away from, when you're filling up a car, you can lock it and walk away from the nozzle. The tanks on these are tiny. So the average scooter is going to have like a 2-gallon tank, 2.5-gallon tank. I believe the tank on the Primavera is 2.4 gallons or 2.6 gallons. The low fuel light will appear on the dashboard when you have roughly 35 to 40 miles left, so you don't have to do like a mad dash to the gas station when your light comes on. You still have a little bit of time. On my Primavera, and same with this model year, when the light comes on, if you go to the gas station immediately, you're probably going to only get about 1.6 gallons into the tank before it tells you it's full. That's because you have a reserve underneath it. So don't expect the full 2+ gallons every time you fill up, unless you're like really down to the wire. Other things to think about with gas, it can overflow. So sometimes you go to a gas station with a nozzle that is like short, like a 4-inch, and then there's sometimes the longer, like 6-inch ones. What I personally do is I take out the underseat storage bucket entirely when I get gas, just to completely avoid any overflows. But there's also a trick where you can take the gas cap and you can put it right here to kind of lift up the underseat storage bucket, which will also keep it from overflowing. Whatever you like to do, totally personal preference. When you're filling up the gas tank, go slow. Don't go full blast into the gas tank. You may find yourself with an eruption because the air can't escape fast enough to compensate for all the gas going inside of it. So just take it easy. Watch the pump when you get into the 1-gallon range. If you want to be real safe, just stop there at 1 gallon. And as you go above a gallon, just slow down a little bit, especially when you get around the 1.4 gallon, 1.5 gallon range. You're probably getting close to capping out, assuming you're going to the gas station right when the light comes on. The gas in your scooter, this is a high combustion engine. You should be putting premium gas, that's 92 octane, into this thing. It will run on 87, but why? I mean, I fill up every 2 weeks for like $5. In the summertime, it's maybe $6.50. Woo! You're not talking about breaking the bank here, which is probably part of why you got one of these in the first place. So put the good gas in, treat your bike right, 92 octane. Also remember, there's no real need to top off the gas, especially if you're riding in the city. Gas is super cheap and you can get in and out of a gas station real fast and pump it yourself. And you're never going to be too far from a gas station in a city either. So don't worry about getting it all the way up to the neck here. So let's also talk about gas mileage for a moment. Pretty much every scooter company on earth is going to advertise 100 plus miles to the gallon. A lot of your gas mileage is going to be related to the rider. Are you a rider who likes to eat a lot of burritos, like every meal? Or are you the kind of person who eats a salad every day of your life? Are you the person who roasts the throttle off of every green light, or are you riding like a grandma? Nothing against the grandmas. The truth is you're not probably going to get 100 miles to the gallon unless you maybe weigh 90 pounds and you're in a vacuum-sealed room riding 20 miles an hour. You can expect a more realistic 65 to 80 miles per gallon, which is still great. But just know that this 100 plus thing, it's a bit of marketing speak, and the variables of a rider are really, and how they ride, are really going to affect actual real world gas mileage. All right, at this point, let's get into wrapping it up, and we'll talk about the tire pressure and the oil, and then we'll kind of close it out. Like I said before, if you have any other questions, they're probably covered in your owner's manual. Otherwise, give us a call, 503-222-3779, and we can usually walk you through whatever. To safely ride and to get the most life out of your tires and to get the best gas mileage possible, you need to pay attention to the inflation of your tires. This is super, super important. And we sometimes see people rolling in here who have like 5 PSI on their tires, like literally downright dangerous riding conditions. Check your tire pressure at minimum every month. Really every 2 weeks would be a good idea. Every time it gets cold out, you're going to lose some pressure. Sometimes on a long ride when your tires heat up, you can lose some pressure. The point is you're going to lose pressure over time, and it's on you. It's an investment in your safety to double check your tire pressure. How do you do that? Well, first off, you need to know how much pressure to put into your tire. And so you have this VIN plate plaque right here that's on your bike. It has a lot of words on it, but basically this top set of lines is about the front tire and the bottom set is about the rear. You're going to see over here in parentheses 26.1 psi cold on the front and 36.3 psi cold. Again, this is for the Primavera. It would also count for the regular Primavera, not the Touring edition, and the Sprint, which is essentially the same bike, just cosmetically different. You don't have to be super scientific. It doesn't have to be 26.1. If you fill up 26, that's fine. If you fill up 27, maybe even 28, that's fine. Getting as close to 26 but not below it is your best bet. On the back, I ride like 40 PSI because I'm often carrying a passenger and I just want a little extra there. But 36 is a good starting place. 37, 38 is also fine. Just try not to be too much below the manufacturer's spec. All right, so on the tire, simply it's just like any bicycle or car you've ever had to put air into the tires of. It's got a Schrader valve. You pull the valve cap off. Any gas station air compressor or bicycle pump is going to be sufficient to fill this thing back up. You can check the pressure with one of those little tire gauges, or sometimes the air compressor itself or the bike pump has a gauge on it, and just fill it up there and then replace the valve stem cap. Same situation on the back, but a little different in that on the back it's going to be on the right side as well, and you're also going to be dealing with a muffler right here, which if you've just been riding, this is going to be really hot, so don't touch this. Obviously this bike has just been sitting here, so it's cool to the touch and no danger at all. All right, and lastly we'll talk about the oil. This is a used bike, so this thing is a little bit dirty. But basically your oil dipstick is right here, and what you're going to want to do is just loosen that up, spin it right off of there, and pull it out. Wipe it off with a rag, paper towel, whatever it is. And you'll see it's maybe hard to tell on the camera, I'm not sure if it's focusing right, but there's a bunch of cross hatches right here. Once those are dry, you're going to put that thing back in, screw it all the way back in, unscrew it all the way back out, and then you're going to see the level of the oil. So here you can see that it's right up to the top of the cross hatches, right in the full zone. Anything between the end of the stick here and there is good. If this thing comes out totally dry, your oil is probably a little bit low. You can go probably about a month or so before you should realistically check your oil. Again, your oil consumption is going to be based on how you ride. If you're ripping down the freeway, you're going to consume some more oil than someone who's just going 25 to 35 on surface streets all the time. But it's worth checking every now and then, and it's right down there. All right, I lied. The oil wasn't going to be the last thing we would talk about. Since we're on the Primavera Touring, it's maybe worth talking a little bit about the accessories that come with this. Like we said, there's a front rack, a rear rack, and a windscreen. The rear rack is right here, and it's a folding model. There are also static flat racks, like if you're going to put a top case back here. Not really necessary to have a folding rack because it's going to be down all the time anyway. So you're getting it for free essentially on this bike, but if you already own a Primavera, or you're thinking about getting the standard one, but you want that top case, the flat rack is the better option. Folding rack is good for, impromptu kind of storage. You could put a 12-pack of Pacifico on there, you could put some groceries, put whatever you need on the back of that thing. Probably worthwhile to carry some bungee cords or a cargo net with you in the underseat storage here. And to pay attention to the weight rating on the rack. It says, I think 4 kilograms, which is 8.8 pounds. Thank you, Siri, for giving me that information. You don't want to exceed that too much, especially on the front of the bike, which has the exact same weight ratio or weight rating. The metal frame in the front is a little bit thinner. It's not as strong as the back. So keep that in mind when you're loading the thing up. All right, here we are at the front of the bike. Again, maximum load 4 kilograms, 8.8 pounds. Right here is good. On the front, you have one extra little hazard, though, to think about. In the US, we haven't gone yet to fully LED lights, so they are still shipping these to the US with halogens. You're not going to want anything to be up against this light or blocking this light. First off, that's illegal. You'll get pulled over and potentially get a ticket for that. But also, this is going to get really hot. And so if you put like a backpack or something right here, it's going to sit against this and roast, like literally start smoking and potentially melt out this hard plastic light. Ask me how I know. Anyway, keep things below the light if you're going to be doing any storage on the front of the bike. And lastly, this is a small size windscreen for the Primavera or the Sprint. This thing is going to deflect wind and rain up and potentially above your helmet, depending on your height. You may need a little taller one if you're a little taller. For me, when I sit on it, it tends to deflect it right at my neck right here. It makes my shirt move around, which is kind of annoying to me, but anyone shorter than me, it's probably kicking it into the helmet level or above. That's going to be pretty useful for you at high speeds when the wind starts to kind of beat you up above 50. But also an unintended benefit, perhaps, is in the summertime, if you're riding around at night, you're going to notice a lot of bugs are very attracted to this headlight. It's super bright. This is actually going to keep a bunch of bugs from hitting you. So nice to have a little bug screen, windscreen available as an extra for any other Primavera, but included on the Touring model. All right, that concludes the walk around of the Vespa Primavera Touring 2019 model year. Chances are there's not going to be much change at all in the 2020 year. If you bought a 2017 from somebody used, it's basically the same. It's all kind of the same operation. So enjoy your bike, enjoy riding. Hopefully you're still awake at this point in this video. And we'll be back with another one soon. This is Andrew from Vespa Portland. See you later.